Alright, my number 40 out of my top 50 movies of 2000 is another movie that plenty of people dislike. It has a bit of a cult following, I believe. There is a few people that do really back this movie up, and that is The Reindeer Games. Okay, I get it. There are some really bad, cheesy moments and cringe-worthy moments in the film, but some of that has to do with some of the editing that was done by the studio, I believe. I think the version I saw was the director's cut because a lot of things made completely sense. The characters' motivations made sense, which a lot of people say didn't make sense in the other version. And there really was a bit of a mind game happening with him and the people that have kidnapped him because they want him to break into this casino, and so he has to lie and manipulate the characters to try to escape and stuff. And the twist I actually liked. There was plenty of things. The action towards the end was really good. This was like a psychological thriller, and if you watch the director's cut, it works. So I don't know how bad the theatrical version is. It must be plain awful because all I ever hear is bad stuff about Reindeer Games. But for me, it's number 40. Now, number 39, I mentioned this in my Selfless review. It is The Sixth Day. Now, before I rewatched this, I remember it being more of a 90s style action Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, kind of like Eraser. And in fact, I remember liking Eraser more when I first watched the two films. But having rewatched The Sixth Day for this review, I really found myself enjoying it more and feeling there is some deeper stuff in this film than any other 90s action Arnold Schwarzenegger film. Sure, you get your 90s action Arnold Schwarzenegger stuff in this film, and some of the characters that are being cloned and brought back to life again and again does take away some of the tension and the importance of death in this movie. And there's this one side plot with this thing I totally forgot about until I rewatched it, and Robert Duvall's in it, and he has this side story, this very sympathetic, this awesome side story that is far deeper than I would have expected an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie to have. So for that, I have to give it a little bit above average because of that stuff, and it is my number 39 of 2000. Now, number 38 is a film that I'd never heard about. It had a really high percentage in Rotten Tomatoes. I think it was 98% for critics. And it has Clive Owen in it, so I had to see it. It is, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Croupier? How do you pronounce that? I'm not sure. But basically, Clive Owen is a writer, and he's one of those writers that if his character has a certain job, he takes on that job to try to, it's almost like method acting, but for writers. He tries to get into that scene, he tries to see what it's like to help write his character for his film, his stories, sorry. And so he goes to this casino and he starts working there, and he starts liking this one girl that works there, and she starts wanting to do a heist and stuff. And it becomes like a little bit of a crime thriller, and it is really interesting. It's sometimes a little too subtle for its own good, sometimes it's not as meaty and it doesn't feel as meaningful, but other times it is really, really good. It's well acted, it's well directed, and there are some moments where it's just plain awesome. But for me, it's my number 38. Number 37 is a Nicolas Cage movie that, yes, it's basic, it's very similar to plenty other Christmas type films or stories. It is The Family Man. I know, this is not that original at all. There's plenty of cliches, there's plenty of things you've seen in other Christmas movies. The Family Man still works for me, and I still really enjoyed it. I think it's a good, almost not dumb time, but it's a good little Christmas family movie that if you don't really want to see a Scrooge movie or something, and you just want to see something that has that same elements in it a little bit, but with something different, you go see The Family Man. It's okay. Alright, number 36 is something that I found really funny, and it's dark humor, it's funny, people are trying to kill each other, people are playing each other, it's got some good actors involved. Number 36 is The Whole Nine Yards, and it's not for most people. sometimes it's really silly, it's really goofy, it's really out there, but in all honesty, I was never not entertained with this movie. I was always interested, everything was always funny or crazy or just plain loopy, that I really enjoyed it. Some Oscar bait films I still enjoy, even though I can tell they're total Oscar baits. And one of the ones I really still enjoy is Pay It Forward. It has this very sappy, very optimistic tone to it, or message to it, but at the same time that message is always tested, at least, so it never gets too overblown to the point where it's always sappy. There is some things, at least conflict-wise, in it, and I admittedly still enjoyed it. The ending is out there. The ending feels like it was just made just to try to give a little tragic spin on it, and it's almost completely just like unnecessary. But for the most part, Pay It Forward was something I still kind of enjoyed. Alright, number 34 is another film that I never heard about until I looked up Best Movies of 2000, and I saw it on Netflix, and so I had to go see it. And it's a political thriller, which I'm not big in political thrillers. I'm not big in anything politics, but The Contender, my God, that was pretty amazing. And it's so strange. Most of it happens in one place, one setting. Most of it, it's not an action-packed movie. It's not anything where people are dying. It's not that kind of thriller. It's just a woman that's trying to be senator, I believe. Yeah, she's trying to be a senator or House of Representative. I can't remember which one. It's been a while since I've seen it. But she's just trying to be in politics, and she's being scrutinized by Gary Oldman. And my God, they got this trial for her for past things she might have done, might not have done. And just because they want a certain senator to be elected rather than her, and it is intense. It really is. And I think the ending kind of blew. The ending was sucky, but the rest of it, hands down, probably best political thriller I've seen. But then again, I really don't like political thrillers, so it's hard to judge. Number 33 is another wartime movie where it's more about the soldiers being trained and not about the war. It is Tigerland, and Colin Farrell's in it. It's the same director that did Phone Booth, which I really love. And that director, he definitely has some hits and misses. Like, there's plenty of movies where he absolutely does amazing with, and there's other movies that completely blow. Tigerland is somewhere in the middle. I really enjoyed it. I can see people really loving it. It's about Vietnam War. Yeah, it's Vietnam, and Colin Farrell is this rebel. He hates the military system. He's trying to always go against it no matter what happens, and he's trying to make these people think rather than try to be just mindless soldiers. So he is a rebel. He's doing everything in his power. He screws with people. People hate him for it. People love him for it. The superiors hate him. And it is pretty crazy. And all he wants to do is escape the system. And in the end, he mostly just helps out other people instead of escaping himself. And there's some pretty damn intense moments in Tigerland. And it's not for everyone, but if you're interested, go ahead and look it up. It's pretty good. Alright, number 32 is another war movie. This time it actually is a war movie, and it's a little bit more of a trial as well. It's one of those wartime trials where something happens during combat, and now they're being scrutinized in a trial. And it is Rules of Engagement. You can't fault the actors for being in it. These actors are all phenomenal, and they're all really good actors. Guy Pearce, Samuel Jackson, and Tommy Lee Jones. In this film, Samuel Jackson is a sergeant or a lieutenant, and he has been through Vietnam, and now he's in more modern-day combat, or modern-day in 2000s era. And now they're in this Middle Eastern country. The ambassador is being attacked, and all like civilians, and everyone's unsure whether they're actually shooting. everyone's ducking because someone's shooting at them. They don't know if it's the rooftops or the civilians down below because there's a riot down below as well. And Samuel Jackson is the only one that gets a good viewpoint, and he believes there are guns being fired from the crowd below, and so he orders his men to shoot down below. Well, now his orders are in question when no guns are found on the scene, and so now there's a trial whether he made the right decision, whether he fired into innocent casualties or he actually was firing at people that were attacking them. And this whole thing's a mess in the media. Government's trying to cover things up. Tommy Lee Jones is doing his best to investigate the thing. It is really amazing, and I'm surprised it's not as liked as it is. Granted, the trial scenes aren't as intense as some other wartime trial scenes. There's been some way better ones, but the action that happens in the first half of this film, all of it is amazingly shot. It's very graphic, very brutal. It's really intense and amazing, and I have to commend it for that at least. Okay, my number 31 is a very interesting time travel movie. I guess you can consider it a time travel movie. It's not quite time travel per se, but it's Frequency. Frequency stars Dennis Quaid and Jim Caviezel, which you might remember him as the main character in Person of Interest if you've seen Person of Interest. Now in this film, Dennis Quaid is a firefighter. Jim Caviezel is his son who grows up to be a cop. This is a film that goes back and forth from the past to the present, and in the present, Jim Caviezel's character is a cop. His father, Dennis Quaid, is dead, and he had died during an accident when he was fighting a fire. But suddenly, Jim Caviezel's character finds this old radio that he used to play with as a kid, that his father used to talk to other people with this kind of radio. And so he plays around with it, and he starts picking up someone else's radio signal. And so they start talking, and then eventually he finds out he's talking to his father from the past. And so the past and present are talking with each other of the past father and the future son. And so the future son tries to tell him that he's gonna die this certain day, you gotta avoid it. And so he saves his life because of that. But of course the timeline is tampered now, and something goes wrong, and because of that, now there's a serial killer that is left alive that wouldn't have been alive if the father had died. And so now this serial killer has killed the mother, and so now they have to work together to try to figure out how the mother's going to die by this serial killer, how to stop this serial killer, and all that sort of stuff. And it's really pretty amazing. It's unique, it's different, I really enjoyed it, and there are some really cheesy moments in it, but for the most part, it is handled really well. So that was my favorite 40 to 31 films of 2000, and this was Just My Opinion.